Yeah.
Because I see that you're developing new stuff all the time with like the road bike and all that. And so anyway, I've been doing triathlon. I started off doing triathlon in 2002 or something. I grew up as a swimmer, and then got into long distance Ironman, and then Ultraman, and then high performance, trying to qualify for Kona at the pointy end. I can really appreciate your angles on making a really good product for performance, and that's actually what matters a lot. And then Kai was raised in my household, both fortunately and unfortunately for him. I've noticed there's a lot of really good pros that one of their parents or both of their parents were into Ironman, and then however they took that into their own training, because I would do Ironmans and Kai would follow me on the bike for parts of it, and
the run and stuff.
Yeah, and support with water bottles on a little kid's bike. So he's raised, and you did triathlon as a kid.
Yeah, and so like 14, 15 years old.
Yeah. And then and here in Texas, and a lot of the United States, a lot of high schools started doing this NICA program, this mountain biking program.
Yeah.
And his high school didn't, of course, in Texas, instead of building a swimming pool, they built a gigantic football stadium, American football stadium, with no money left over for a swimming pool and no swim team, but it was a mountain bike team. And I was like, that's fantastic. Let's just do that. So then in America, racing, we started to see some of the Lauf forks. It wasn't like all the time or like very common, but on occasion we would see a Lauf fork, because we're all the way here in Texas, we're not in Iceland or anything, but we would see a Lauf fork show up.
Yeah.
And it was
where in Texas are you?
We're in College Station, which is Texas A&M, which is halfway between Austin and Houston.
Okay.
It is one of the fastest growing cities. It's really big, actually. And we're in the triangle of Dallas. If you did Dallas up high, up north, and then Austin to the west, and then Houston to the east, we're dead center in the middle of that.
Okay.
So, and I would like to say, I was thinking about it today. I'm real sweaty because I just finished a run and you just finished a bike ride. We're actual real athletes.
And it must be hot now, I assume.
Oh my God. I finished running like 45 minutes ago and I'm still sweating. Sorry. I thought but I had this thought that Texas is kind of like the Colorado of gravel, where Colorado is really great for road cycling and mountain biking in that it's plains and then it's mountains, right? And my degree's in geography, and that's what I know and do. So I think Texas, there is this break line where it's a lot of cities, and then bam, it's hill country and gravel and pasture and ranch land and just kind of a lot of nothing. But Texas we're the second most populous state in the union, and so we have these massive cities that are right on the edge of all this gravel.
Exactly.
And then so for example, we did Valley of Tears, which was fantastic, which I want to talk about with Chase Wark. We ended up standing next to Chase Wark in the pre-race meeting. And I kept looking at him, and I'm like, I think I know that guy. Then that's where we first started seeing lots of Laufs sitting around with the cool paint jobs. And And then we did Gravel Locos. Is where when I was trying to cross the finish line, I got passed by a Lauf Seigla like I was standing still. You remember that guy?
I think I was planning on doing the Gravel Locos one of these years. Did it just take place just recently?
No, it was
what was like a month ago.
A couple months ago, maybe. Unbound was maybe a month ago, and then Gravel Locos is like 2 weeks before, or maybe 3 weeks before Unbound, and people use it as a warm-up because it's kind of
literally warm up.
But yeah, I was at the dinner table the 2 nights before the race, and I had Lawrence Tyndam next to me, Ian Boswell, Alex Howes
Hmm.
across from me, and Nikki Terpstra, who won Paris-Roubaix at the end of the table. I mean, it's a who's who, but because it kind of flies under the radar, they feel like they can just, and it's only 150 miles. It's not 200 miles. So they use it
only 150.
Yeah, only, yeah.
As a tune-up, they use it as a tune-up ride. And then also, just to forewarn you, to talk, we're both bike nerds. You used to work at a bike shop.
Of course.
And we don't have any Lauf Seiglas here or Laos, but we do have some bikes of some examples of why we think that Lauf is like such a great design choice. And we want to talk about that with this headset and handlebar assembly, like on a triathlon bike, which is the worst case example.
Yeah.
A much better example on this other gravel bike behind us. And then also,
what bike is that? The gravel bike.
That's a Vast. Well, okay, this one's a Trek concept. Where everything's integrated in the front end. Everything is tightly integrated. And I was going to talk about, I've got this part right here is loose right here, which is going to be a 2-hour project to pull it apart, to tighten down one bolt to make that tight again. All right, and then can you move a little? Can you see that? This is this is a Vast, which I've being in having a Bachelor of Science and Masters of Science degree. I found Vast really interesting because they do magnesium frames. So there's a lot for gravel that's like a really good absorbing. Magnesium's really good absorbing. But the frame clearance on the rear tire is only 42 millimeters.
Yeah.
So they're way too tight, you know. So while they've been good bikes, and they were just available during the pandemic because the bike shops were kind of sold out of everything else, we got those, and they've served their job. But that was like 3 years ago, 4 years ago. These bikes,
4 years ago, yeah.
And we're
back when 42 was considered, plenty.
Yeah, plenty. And that's what I want to get to, is like how. Besides, like, you know, how you've started this company, like, what was your background to start your own company? Because I always find it interesting. But the foresight to go, I think yours is 57, and you're like Giant just went to 53, and that's considered a lot. But you're at 57 millimeters clearance, I think.
That's crazy.
And like how you did it, and like. We get to this in a minute, but was it like, did you know what you were doing and like how smart that was? Or like, was that just something that you just kind of did and just maybe guessing like it would work? But I've been talking long enough. Can you tell us like how you started a bike company out of Iceland? Did you start it out of Iceland? And like, where did you get your like knowledge, if you have degrees in this and all that stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm an engineer. I mean, I'm mechanical, / industrial. Actually, I did my bachelor's in mechanical industrial for masters in the US, actually. And I've just always been obsessed with bikes since early childhood, obviously. And then I've been like, I guess I'm an inventor at heart. I wanna disrupt. I wanna make new stuff, find new ways of solving problems, sort of. And in addition to this, I was like absolutely fascinated by composites. So composites, which is, I mean, you know, like carbon fiber, glass fiber, these materials. I was fascinated by those materials ever since I visited like a supercar factory when I was 20 years old. I visited Koenigsegg, Swedish like hypercar, so I managed to get myself like a summer job alongside, I think it was after my first year of engineering, mechanical engineering in Iceland, a summer job writing as a car journalist. and like I took the angle of like environmentally like conscious like cars sort of, and as it happened to be Koenigsegg, they can be fueled by like ethanol, which was like considered like CO2 neutral or whatever at the point. So I using that angle sort of, I booked myself like a visit, or like contacted the guys at Koenigsegg and did a visit to the factory. And there I witnessed for the first time like how they made like the chassis of the car, basically like the tub that you sit in the car, how that is done out of carbon fiber.
Right.
And I assume, I mean, being like bike geeks, you probably know like a little bit about carbon at least.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So I mean, just like when you see it for the first time, how you take like a fabric. In their case, it was all like woven material that they used for it, and I could see how they were just like cutting it with scissors, laying it into like a mold, and then putting it into an autoclave, and out comes this like rigid chassis for a car.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that was enough to spark the interest in composites.
Mm-hmm.
So from that point onward, sort of, I was like super into just like understanding composites and the stuff you can do with them. Plus, being a bike geek and all that. So, a few years later, I did my master's in the US, Columbia, New York, and then moving back to Iceland after that, I was like, looking for a job. And since I was like in my spare time, I was reading up on composites. And I was looking into how I could make like a bike frame just in my parents' garage or something. I was thinking, okay, how can I use this like interest, this passion for composites in Iceland? And the only logical company basically for me was this prosthetic company, Usher, it's called. It's one of the world's leaders in prosthetics. So I got a job there in designing prosthetic feet. Like for example, like the kind that you see on like sprinters feet, like these long J-shaped, carbon feet. So I was designing those feet, and in my job there, I started like looking into, basically my department was tasked with making a suspension ankle that somehow gave you like vertical compliance without like lateral give or lateral twists.
I know where this is going. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So this led me to the thinking of like analyzing the fundamental like forces in the system sort of, and realizing that to prevent the lateral twist, you need like two parallel springs that have like provide like a lever arm against one another, against like the torsion, which then led to me prototyping like ankles like that, and then at the same time always like being racing my cross-country bike in the weekends and all that. I was starting to realize like, hey, this is my ankle to cycling. I mean, not just to make like a generic carbon frame like everybody else is doing, but like using flexural properties of composites that aren't being used in cycling. So at that point, and mostly still, not fully, but mostly carbon is being used for lightweight and stiffness.
Mm-hmm.
But like the third, like under the chair basically for composites is like the ridiculous like flexural performance of many composite materials, carbon fiber and glass fiber especially. So I started like sketching up ideas for what came to be the Lauf fork. Applied for a patent on it, and then I couldn't focus at work anymore because I was so obsessed with it. So I had to quit my job.
I've been there.
And go all in on this. And this was back in 20. So I quit my job at the prosthetic company and then went for this full time back in 2011. 13 years ago.
Yeah. So my dad was a structural engineer, and he built skyscrapers. And as a kid, I would ask him, he would just show me, because he's just the difference between why plywood is stronger than regular wood, and then also how I-beams work. And an I-beam, because it's got those flat pieces, it won't twist sideways, and because it's got the vertical piece, it won't twist that much. So it's like a really efficient use of of materials to keep rigidity. But because it's steel, it'll flex a little bit, which is nice, you know. But yeah, in the a few years ago, there started to be a whole bunch of GCN videos about visiting your factory and stuff. And what's his name? Well,
Simon.
yeah,
Simon from TCM that
Simon,
came,
yeah, Simon hitting those glass fire, those glass
yeah,
fire.
yeah, I remember, yeah.
And you said, you know, people think it's carbon fiber, you just let them go along with that, which I think actually carries longer than saying the opposite. It's pretty cool. But so why are glass fiber, those leaf springs in the fork, are they lighter or heavier than carbon fiber? And then then would you not use that in the whole bike frame?
Yeah, so it's yeah, it doesn't have a universal answer basically. It depends on what you're after. So glass, so there's glass fiber and then there's glass fiber. So we use what's called S2 glass fiber, and it's like the finest or like the best grade you can get of glass fiber, and it's used for to armor tanks.
Okay.
And stuff like that. So it's like the highest performing material you can get if you're after like impact resistance and flex.
But you're not getting a lot of it because it's just those like
just 12 of them.
12
yeah.
So it's not that
actually in total 12. Yeah. So that's like it's the best material for like this application if you're after the flex. So if you're making like a springboard, like a swimming pool springboard or something, this would be the best material for that. But like it's heavier than carbon fiber. Like if you just like if you're just making like a beam that just has to support a certain weight or something, then you could make that beam lighter out of carbon than out of glass fiber. But then if you also want that beam to be impact resistant, to be able to handle hits from the side or whatever, like throw rocks at it or whatever.
Right.
Then like gradually at some point the glass fiber will begin to outperform the carbon.
Right.
So it's just much better for flex and impact.
Okay.
And so I mean we could make the fork that the Lauf fork with carbon fiber springs, but each spring like carbon can only flex like less than half of the distance that the glass fiber can.
Okay.
So so which would mean that the springs would have to be slightly longer to compensate for that. It's because a longer spring can flex further
laterally too if it starts getting longer.
Then it starts to more flex more laterally, plus like the envelope of the whole thing, the visual envelope and all that of it will become bigger. So all the things will become heavier. So I mean the total fork would probably become heavier with carbon springs, plus the springs themselves wouldn't be as like impact resistant as they are if you use glass fiber. Plus it would just look worse because the springs would have to be so long.
Yeah, because and if people haven't seen it, Google GCN Simon, I don't know, hammering Lauf springs. And it is hilarious. He's like, he can't resist it. He's just going, because he left and then went back, to hit it some more because it's so.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's pretty funny. And it's crazy when even to me, like to this day, I mean, still, if I like it, to see how impact resistant it is, it's crazy. Like back in the days, people were like, I mean, aren't those springs gonna break? It's just like, no, they won't. It's like everything else on the bike is gonna break before the springs in the fork.
So that's. You did a 60 millimeter suspension fork, mostly for mountain biking, and then as gravel became a thing more and more, you went down to like a 30. And I love material science and physics and all this stuff, and so like there is a specific type of suspension for every specific type of surface, right? And gravel, immediate response over that low amplitude, I guess you call it low amplitude, high frequency of stuff. You don't really need dampening so much as you just need quick response. and then
Exactly.
that, and so then a Lauf fork is perfect for that. That is like the perfect fork. And then we started seeing people like Chase Wart at the front of races. And then now Dylan Johnson, who's a
The Unbound.
aerodynamic nerd, take it to the wind tunnel, and his felt bike has, and he admitted his felt bike doesn't have like aerodynamic front fork in the first place. But then the fact that your suspension like trails behind the legs of the fork. And then also I think the front of your fork is kind of pointed, but then it has kind of a cam tail on the back of it a little bit. And then which is good. That's a good thing. And then the suspension sits behind that in that area, that the Lauf fork was a suspension fork was faster aerodynamically than a non-suspension fork, which I thought was absolutely crazy.
I mean, it was a surprise to us. I mean, we thought it would have some more draft than like a tiny rigid fork as the fork he was comparing to, for sure. But I mean, we did design it like with aerodynamics in mind. It was never supposed to be like an aero fork. Obviously, that's not the the focus.
Not a priority.
No, it's all about the smoother ride. I think like in general, I think like aerodynamics are, I mean, of course they are important riding a bike. Obviously, it's obvious. I mean, it's been proven obviously with wind tunnels and all that. But I think it's often like people focus a little bit too much on it. And I think often that is due to like how, I guess like, I mean, it's not cheap to go to a wind tunnel, but it's still it's relatively easy. It's relatively scientific. It's like you can get like a clear answer, sort of, even though you sometimes get like unexpected results and all that. But you can easily compare like this wheel set to that wheel set and come up with some like often pseudoscience. I mean, often it's bullshit, sort of, but you can get something that you can use for marketing in a pretty like concrete way, I guess, from a wind tunnel.
Right.
While how do you really like test like the speed that like the suspension of a Lauf fork gives you? It's much more like subjective. It depends on how much it like faster it enables you to go down a certain hill. For example,
you'd have to run the same route several times to see in the real world, because it's very hard to replicate that.
And even that, it's often down to like your head becomes like a part of the equation, sort of, because like how do you ride it with this fork and that fork? That's up to the rider. But like the suspension is there to like enable him to ride faster. So we help him riding faster, but it's hard to like prove that point, I guess. And then so I mean, finally now we're seeing like more and more testing with tire widths. That's like, you mentioned it earlier. So I'm a bit obsessed with that now, like tire widths that I'm always like, I'm constantly amazed at how like reluctant people are to, how long it takes people to realize that going with wider tires is generally gonna make you faster.
Right.
So, but even that's a thing that like until now recently has been hard to prove. And that, I guess that this goes back into, it goes back and forth, like into like the fork, our Lauf fork as well. The thing about like wider tires and our fork is that both of them make you feel slow because you feel less vibration.
Right.
Which is what makes you fast.
Yeah.
So it's like this contradiction there that has been the cyclist's worst enemy for decades. I mean, that's the reason why. I mean, what tires did like the Pro Tour riders ride on like a decade ago or two? I mean, it's like around 20 mils or something.
Right.
I mean, I myself, I rode like a race around Iceland, like a relay race, like 4 guys in a team. Racing Iceland, so 1,400 kilometers, give or take. So did it in like 24 hours or so. And back then I was on 20, I think 2 or 3 millimeter tires,
Right. Yeah.
because it felt super fast.
Yeah.
And I felt like I was going crazy fast, which made me feel competitive. So that's what I wrote. But now, I mean, we're finally like gradually getting there with tires, because now we have power meters on high-end bikes.
Right.
Like, I mean, pretty much, like almost all of our bikes come with power meters. So you can like easily try different tire widths and just measure the power needed to or the time it takes you to do a certain loop at a certain power output. And it's pretty cool to see like more videos like that coming out. And now, I mean, like you can see several videos now online like showing how a 32 tire is actually faster than a 28.
Yeah. Right.
And if you go into a like a higher end road race or I guess any road race like at all, pretty much nobody's on 32 millimeter tires because they don't feel as fast. So even though they've been shown to be faster like for quite some time now, people are still like reluctant to go there because they're too comfortable and you don't feel fast enough.
Yeah.
So it's
I was one of the first. I was on a team, then we got sponsored by BMC and also PowerTap back in 2007. So we've had and I have a long 3 to 5 hour route that I would just repeat all the time with a power meter. And I was obsessed with trying to qualify for Kona. So I would tweak tire pressure by just like 5 PSI because it was at 120 at that time. 5 PSI was a bit.
Wow. Yeah.
Like 5 PSI, different tire widths, different positions, different how much time in the aero position and all that stuff. And it matters a lot. And I've been riding a gravel bike a bunch. I mean, for like 3 years now straight. And I just got back on my triathlon bike just for fun, which is 23. It's a 23 in the front and 25 in the rear. And trying to find the smooth section in the middle of the road instead of the rough. Because I know that actually the smoother the road on a rigid bike, I'm going to go faster, as long as I get the position. Yeah. So, let's talk a little bit about like you moving the operations to the United States, like to prepare for this interview. I've watched all the GCN stuff. And that goes back like 5 years. Actually, I noticed one of those interviews is 5 years with your shop, like on the 3rd story. And then you show like your original fork. And then I don't think you had the Seigla yet. You had the True Grit. Yeah.
Yes.
And then with a bottle opener, that's when I knew you all were a cool company. You had a bottle opener with a front derailleur. And then so that was before the Seigla. And then but then did you realize that your biggest group of sales was in the United States, and then you wanted to I find this stuff really interesting, the logistics. You said something in another interview that was just like 6 months to a year ago. You're interviewing something in your warehouse or assembly center in Virginia.
Yep.
And you decided to move because so many bikes are being sold in the United States because the gravel culture in the United States is there's so much potential and so much gravel here to actually, instead of assembling the bikes in Iceland and then shipping them around the world, to just assemble them in the United States, in Charlottesville or something. What was that?
Yeah, close to Harrisonburg.
Harrisonburg.
So,
okay.
Yeah, it's close to Charlottesville. Yeah. So it's the home of JMU, James Madison University, for example.
Okay.
But yeah.
And so what's that like? So you've got like a bunch of people in that warehouse. I mean, a bunch is like 6 or 8 or something. But then you can build the bikes out specifically to your US market and then ship them out from there, and then it costs less. And I've noticed that because as we're looking around for bikes to upgrade from this 42, like we're stuck at a 42 rear. And so I think everybody is always trying to upgrade, right? And so we're looking, and I noticed on the Lauf website that you offer some pretty good shipping prices and timelines. Because is it because the bikes are like assembled in the United States and Virginia and you can get them out? And what was that? What led to that decision?
Yeah, so basically, yeah. So first off, like our focus on the US, that's just, yeah, gravel exploded in the US first. And I guess it's also like, I mean, we didn't have like a home market in the first place, sort of. So in Europe, you typically have like these like local champions in every country, sort of. You don't have a lot of like companies maybe that have like conquered the entire continent, sort of, because you have different languages and all that. While the US is the biggest single market, sort of. So if you want to like start somewhere and you're not bound by actually living in Germany, whatever, then it's logical to look to the US. And like I said, in addition to the US being the starters of the gravel scene, basically.
Yeah.
So this pushed our focus like heavily on the US. Yeah, from the beginning, basically, we've always been mostly focused on the US. And for a while, we shipped the bikes actually assembled from Taiwan, so directly to each and every customer directly from Taiwan.
Right.
But then, I mean, the end game was always to set up a factory in the US, because like we want to be closer to the end customer. It's just like it has like an endless list basically of benefits.
Right. A lot of countries are doing, a lot of companies are doing that. They're moving the fabrication back to the United States or back to Germany or back, back to Italy or whatever.
Yeah.
Because now I think we're at the point with distribution and manufacturing and customer satisfaction, we've got the knowledge of how to make these things is coming back to the countries instead of just shipping it off to Asia to do it.
Yeah, exactly. And like, it just has so many benefits to be, like I said, close to the people that are actually buying them. It's just, I mean, the shipping is shorter, obviously, and then we can, I mean, if you think about it, how to stock up for your like sales. I mean, how do you predict what you will sell in the coming months or whatever? So if you operate out of Asia, like if you assemble your bikes there, you have to forecast way further into the future.
Right.
While like in our current setup, we can bring things in like much more like just in time for the assembly.
Right.
So we can just like every month basically we review the orders we make for components and just like we keep it just flowing constantly. And this means we can like carry way less inventory and ship everything smoother. And then as a result of that, we can sell them much cheaper, basically.
Yeah, I just saw a video review, a comparison of your bike versus the Canyon. You probably watched this because I think it was really good. Versus the Giant, Giant Revolt. There was a 3-way comparison.
Yeah.
And it was by road.cc. It was like a really good comparison. And they were like, these are all great bikes, right? And they said, but in the end, the guy was like, for my money, if I'm buying this, okay, which bike's the best bike? Because it has like all these high-end extreme componentry. I think maybe they picked the Giant, like if you had unlimited funds or something like, because they go way up. And then but then the reviewer, and this is where I think it comes down to reality, and they said the Canyon was just kind of like clinical. It was just kind of a boring execution kind of bike. It would be road bike. That's what it was, for an endurance bike, not the gravel bike.
Exactly. Yeah.
But if it was for my money and I'm a person and I'm buying this off my own salary, I would buy the Lauf every day because of the price and what you're getting for the bike. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think like, I don't get why like anybody buys anything else, basically. It's like, I mean, it's, I guess it like for us, obviously it takes a while to build up a company. I mean, you have, I think it's mostly, that this goes back to also, I think, like assembling them and shipping them out like within the US. It's all about confidence, I think.
Right.
I mean, if I put myself in the shoes of a bike, buyer in the US, like, yes, I mean, if you can like get the bike at a better price and all that, but I mean, first off, I mean, you need to trust the company. Because regardless of the deal you're making, it's still, you're always talking about like a substantial amount of money. So that's always like the first criteria. Do you trust the company? I mean, of course, I can hear that you've like checked our reviews and all that. I mean, we get great reviews pretty much every, so it's, I think people should have every reason to trust us, but still, when you're a smaller company, it's an uphill battle against the big ones,
right?
I guess. Yeah. So
what I
that's
noticed in the reviews about Lauf that really got me interested was how, you know, the geometry is so progressive, but I think that's I don't think that's a bad thing. I think you're future-proofing your bike. So, you know, most of us that are buying bikes, you know, we're 3-4 years into our gravel bikes, and I'm almost 10 years into my triathlon bike, you know. So like these things are so expensive sometimes that if you buy a high performance bike, you want to future-proof it.
yeah, absolutely.
So the Lauf is, you know, the super wide tire clearance, which you can just tell that that's like the way the industry's going.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, yeah.
And then also to change, I don't want to change subjects like so fast, but like I used to surf a lot, and I still surf when I can, but like I noticed that I have a 10-foot heavy kind of longboard, and then I have, after longboarding a lot and then moving back to Texas from California, the surf here is real choppy. It would be like gravel. Okay. If surf was like gravel, that's what Texas surf is like.
Yeah.
But I was so into surfing that I had a custom made lightweight 9.5 foot maybe, longboard made, but of a thinner material. And this is fiberglass, which is very much like carbon fiber in a way. And that board rode like crap around here. And I just started riding the longboard again because of the more solid construction, eliminating the top. And then I think I saw somewhere, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but like I saw somewhere that y'all, and I did the same thing on this triathlon bike. There was two choices. I could have paid $1,000 more, maybe $2,000 more, and bought the super high-end lightweight carbon fiber. And I thought, from my experience with surfing, I'm like, I don't know if I want that. I think I actually want something a little bit tougher. It's still carbon fiber. I mean, it weighs nothing, you know, it's like, so, but a carbon fiber that's a little bit tougher is actually a smarter choice. And then when we ride nowadays, and we're on metal bikes, you know, they're magnesium frames, but they're still metal, right? And then so they're tougher than the super lightweight, thin carbon fiber. And you hear these horror stories of people riding the thin carbon fiber and getting like cracks and dings and because when you watch a video of a gravel race, there's something really cool that happens is you hear all the pings, the ding, 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 and somebody will like lose a tooth even, you know, from the gravel. So are y'all still doing the thing where you're on purpose choosing just a slightly heavier grade of carbon fiber for durability?
So we, for carbon, it's usually classified as like standard modulus carbon. That's what we use, and it's the most common carbon material.
Yeah.
And then you have like intermediate modulus and high modulus. So modulus is just the stiffness of it.
Right.
And this is like, this is where I guess like marketing, enters sort of. It's like, so the high modulus carbon fiber is not the stronger carbon fiber.
Right. It's just
sorry.
It's just lighter. It's just
nice. It's neither. So it's same weight, less strength. The high modulus is actually weaker, but it's stiffer.
Oh, okay, I got you. Well, that's not necessarily in gravel whatsoever.
No, exactly. So it's just stiffness, and so basically, I would always be like a little bit like, I always question bike products that claim that they have high modulus fibers. So in general, it's in general, I believe it's not a smart choice because it's generally not a very good material for bikes. I mean, you can use it like there are exceptions where it can help. I mean, yeah, to get to a certain stiffness with minimal weight and all that. But the downsides, they quickly come into play. So it's like high modules can be like up to like 4 times as stiff, I guess, give or take, as the standard modulus fibers. So what happens here is that if you wanna like make your frame lighter, then you look at like the sections where you have a lot of material, like a lot around the bottom bracket, maybe, for example, and then you try to maintain your desired stiffness of that part of the bike. So like the bottom bracket stiffness, for example.
Right.
And then you put that as your criteria, like, okay, hey guys, let's maintain the stiffness of the bottom bracket. It's always going to be strong enough, sort of, but so let's just focus on the stiffness. So that then they go in and replace the standard modulus fibers with high modulus fibers, and they get something that is substantially lighter and has the same stiffness. But the result is it's super crispy. It's like like chips basically. It becomes literally crispy. I mean, and it's no coincidence that if you look at like forums for like the highest end road bikes, mountain bikes, whatever, you're gonna see a lot of like broken chainstays, broken seat stays for like the most expensive layups, especially. And this is because they're using these high modulus fibers to shave off a few grams, and they're just like so much worse at dealing with like lateral impact. And like I need to one day, I've had this on my to-do list for a few years to make like a video to like explain the difference between like high modulus and standard modulus in terms of like impact resistance, because it's like it's so much, the difference is so much bigger than people would expect, sort of.
Right.
And it's like it comes down to the fact that basically, like whenever you're making, so everything you make is a beam, sort of. You always look at it, everything is flexible, and like if you look at like a side wall of a tube, for example,
right.
The squeeze stiffness of the surface that you're pushing on is probably, the stiffness is going to be to the power of 3 with the material thickness. So if you take the thickness down by 50%, or like if you halve the thickness, then you have 1/8 of the stiffness. So it becomes 8 times softer to your touch if you take the stiffness down by half.
Right.
So it's exponential. It's not like it becomes like slightly worse. It goes into a completely different category and becomes like very brittle and very unsafe almost to ride at that point.
Did you see the video of these 3 guys? They got a popular YouTube channel, and one of it's a relatively new bike, and they're nice bike. I forgot the brand. But he's already cracked the top tube on his bike. You know, people have a habit of sitting on their top tubes, and I'm just like, oh, don't do that. Yeah. And if there's a hairline crack already in the top tube of his bike, because carbon fiber is not made to do that. But high modulus will do that a whole lot faster, you know, than
I mean, if you make the sidewall half as thick, then it can flex 8 times more into the same load. And then like also if you factor in that when you make it half as thick, that means you are, because like carbon fiber, it's made of plies of carbon, obviously. Then you might be skipping some of the like non-necessary plies in there. If you're down to just a few layers, basically, you might, I mean, if you're optimizing for weight and getting through all the testing criteria, then you can focus on like the fibers that run like longitudinally along the tube. So you're gonna skip some of the fiber layers that go like 45 degrees or something. But those are the layers that make it actually stronger towards being squeezed or whatever. So all the random stuff that also happens, but it's not included in the ISO tests. So it's basically whenever you want to make like the lightest bike in the world, I mean, essentially I would I mean, I think I can always, yeah, I can probably, yeah, it would be okay if I'm quoted on saying that the lightest bike in the world is going to be absolute shit,
Yeah.
because that means you sacrifice all the other things. I mean, yes, you can make a light bike, but if it's the lightest, it just means that you sacrificed more than all the others, basically.
And we've been racing gravel for 3 years plus now, and a light but well, a fragile bike is not a good idea in gravel
Yeah,
per
yeah.
se. And yeah, and then in that video, he's squeezing the top tube to show the crack. And in the comments, people are like, stop squeezing it. That's helping because it's layers and you're pulling the layers against each other when you're doing that. Yeah, let's talk about the Seigla, or do you say Seigla? And
Seigla, yeah.
And also, my family, as you can tell by our appearance, is Scandinavian. We're Swedish descent, and then
Yeah.
I grew up driving Volvos and all kinds of stuff, all the way down here in Texas.
All
And
right.
my grandparents are Swedish. We're Swedish, and our house was called Trollhagen on a lake in Tennessee, which I think you could get a kick out of. So
Yeah.
I'm very much. I grew up reading Norse mythology books, you know, like for kids. So
Yeah.
steep, but Iceland's actually a little bit out of my realm, you know, like, so I got some questions about Iceland because we're very much like Sweden and Norway and Denmark and stuff. But let's talk about the engineering behind and the choices you've made and on the Seigla. So and then we'll start with like the bikes right behind us with you decided to do a round steering tube and round, or so that you could do a regular stem, right? And then also cabling exposed somewhat. And I thought it was really interesting in wind tunnel testing, whatever, it only exposed cabling, at least just for the brake lines, I think, was maybe like a watt and a half or 2 watts. It's really not that much. Or
No, it's actually, I think it's like in reality, I think it's well below half a watt.
oh wow, okay.
Yeah, so maybe 0.1 or something. So it's like it's tricky. So yeah, the thing is, yeah, with wind tunnels and all that. So whenever basically exposed brake lines and yeah, shifting cables are compared to fully internal, all the tests that I have seen have like all the 4 like cables or wires like shifting and braking,
Right.
to like sort of like to exaggerate the difference. And obviously they test at a fairly high speed where you like amplify the difference, and then like I think the biggest like trick that is played sort of, and this goes back to all aerodynamic like testing, sort of wind tunnel testing of bikes, is that yes, they tell you, so it's like it's the framing, like how it's said, sort of. They say like, yeah, it can save you up to, I don't know, let's say up to 3 watts in extreme conditions.
Right.
Then people like are left thinking, okay, what's extreme? Okay, that must be if I'm going pretty fast and I have like 4 cables. Okay, I go slightly slower. Okay, yeah, then I might have like, okay, 1.5 or maybe 2. But like, while in reality, like the exponentiality of air resistance is so like dramatic that if you take down your testing speed from, I don't know, I can't remember like now on the spot what is generally tested at. You probably know it better than me. Like the benchmark testing speed for wind tunnels.
It's like 40 kilometers. Well, it depends. Yeah. So
40.
like this bike right here. So this is a time trial bike for people watching the video. If you're listening on audio, I'm going to post this on YouTube too. I've got a Trek Speed concept behind me with, besides, this is actually usually hidden. It's all electronic. And
yeah,
this is a completely hidden, you know, sleek front end. I mean, from the front end, it looks like you're looking at a magazine from the side. And
yeah,
but that matters at those speeds, right? And this is for non-draft legal racing, right?
exactly. Yeah, that's the other. Yeah.
And my bike before this, I had a BNC that actually had the round head tube with so that you could swap out stems. And I found something really, I actually miss that bike a lot because I had either an adjustable stem with a hinge in it that you could change, and then, or I could just swap out stems really easily, because depending on the event that I was doing, if I was doing a really short one, I could just swap out the stem and slam the front end down real tight, you know. But if I was doing something really long, like an Ultraman, I could just swap out the stem and then elevate the top end and then be able to ride. I think day 2 of Ultraman, it was like 9 hours, you know, on this thing. And for comfort, you know, I was able to swap this out. But with this bike, I mean, it is a mess of like trying to disassemble this thing, you know,
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
like try to change anything. And then here, Kai, can you pull the back end of that bike a little bit forward? So, yeah, for people watching, this one's like what you were talking about, a full example of 4 different, 3 different exposed cables. But you're saying that's like a watt or something like that.
Yeah, I mean,
If that.
less than a watt. It's gonna be less than a watt for the typical racing scenario, sort of in gravel. So it's I mean, it's like I went, I don't remember these numbers anymore, but I went through the calculations of this when designing a bike. It's like, it's, let's say 0.3, like 0.3 watts or whatever. It's just like, it's negligible.
Right.
So it's just like, it basically does not matter until you're doing like, time trial on a time trial bike at those like time trial speeds. Then it starts to matter a bit. I mean, way less than what it's made out to. Yeah. But still, it's gonna start to matter then. And then like that goes like back to our sort of like our philosophy is that we wanna be, I mean, it's always tempting to like jump on the wagon sort of, because like with marketing and like common perception, because like to not hide the cables nowadays, to some people this is like the tire thing, like narrow tires feel faster. And you feel faster if you don't see cables, sort of. It has almost become like that.
Right.
But like there isn't any like scientific like data supporting that sort of. Because like, I mean, there are also, I mean, there are I mean, if you want to do like an honest comparison, you would also have to like add into the picture that like a headset that accepts cables through it needs to be bigger than a headset that doesn't. So you're increasing the frontal area of your bike to accept those cables. So there are, I mean, so that's a negative in aerodynamics, but you won't like spot that sort of.
Yeah, and something that's so easy to do with this situation. The reason he still got the what do you call it, the chimney?
Especially
I encourage them not to cut that, because when you want to resell this bike, you know, somebody may want it higher. And then but we were doing a 3-day bike packing trip. You know, you just untighten this and then braze it and then put those spacers back under it, and now you've got a super comfortable bike to do the bike packing trip.
That's I mean, this is for I mean, gravel very much, but I mean road biking as well. That like the ability to quickly and easily change your stack height.
Right.
It's
completely undervalued. It's safe.
And it's so much bigger. I mean, so let's say, I mean, if we focus like only on the aero side for a minute to compare to like exposed cables to fully hidden cables.
Right.
I mean, to outweigh the draft, like the 0.3 watts or whatever, like that the cables add in drag. I mean, how much lower would you need to take your fit to compensate? I mean, by like 0 point something millimeters, I guess.
Right.
And when you're like swapping out like spacers onto your stem, over your stem, you're usually doing like 5 millimeters or something. So like if you move a 5 millimeter spacer like on top of your stem rather than underneath, then you might be gaining like an order of magnitude more watts than from having your cables hidden. And like in reality, like for you to be able to quickly change your stack, that actually enables you to take that advantage, to take advantage of going as low as you can, basically. So why you wouldn't do that if you need to when you go.
Yeah, as a bike manufacturer, like I when I see a bike that like that's online, and I'm like, oh wow, what a great bike. This is such a great bike, whatever, new model that's come out, because I'm endlessly looking at bikes.
Yeah.
Then they have like an all-in-one handlebar and stem length combination, and I'm like, oh no, because seriously, like 10 millimeters can make a difference in stem length, and also the stem,
Absolutely. It's a
you
different bike. Yeah.
yeah, it makes it, it can, if you're doing long distance stuff,
Yeah.
we travel it, we're doing 150 miles, 200 miles, 10 millimeters. I remember so on my bike, I did a suspension stem, and I spent a day and my garage is full of stems because
Yeah.
it's cheap. Their stems are actually pretty cheap. So I would go back, is it 90 millimeters, 110? Is it? And then I finally narrowed down on all my spare stems that I got in the garage, and then go, okay, this is the one that actually fits for my arm reach and where I want to be. And then I would order the suspension stem after that, because it really does matter. And you can't do that on a bike that's got the stem
Yeah,
length
one piece.
locked
Yeah.
in. So your Kai has a
My mountain bike.
his mountain bike. He rides a Trek for mountain bike racing. He rides a Trek Super Caliber. And
Yep.
it's got a fixed stem length, and there's not much he can do about it without us dumping a whole bunch of money into a whole new handlebar setup.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about this on the Seigla, the single front chain ring to get the width to fit the rear tire, and then also this custom. Is it custom? I don't know. I'm not very clear on it. Arrangement you had to make with SRAM or whoever to do a bottom bracket.
No, it's not custom. So nowadays it's actually their standard gravel offering. Basically, they do nothing else for gravel nowadays. But back then, so basically, we use the gravel cranks, which is essentially the road cranks sort of SRAM. But when we were designing the Seigla, those came in on the narrow width and then the wide width.
Right.
And the difference just being 5 millimeters of the spindle length, the bottom bracket spindle length. But nowadays they only make the wider one. So so to some people they're put off by basically the name of it, that it's a wide axle crank.
Right.
But it's actually it's not wide. It's still narrower than the Shimano GRX.
Okay. Oh.
By 0.3 millimeters. So it's the same. It's the same width as as GRX. But it's just 5 millimeters wider than the standard road offering of SRAM.
Yeah.
It's just still practically nothing. So we just realized, okay, hey, this must be the thing that is happening here, because people are gonna eventually want wider tires.
Right.
And why in the world would cranks stay where they are for road bike tires of old times? I mean, when we're moving into this new category of bikes.
Right.
So we put our money on this wider standard becoming the standard for gravel bikes. But it wasn't yet when we designed the Seigla. But then SRAM offered both, and on the red, the top of the line level, they didn't offer the wide option. So we basically, that was the customization they did. So they added that to their line. So they made the wide option for us for the 1x red cranks. Nowadays, I think they're only making that nowadays, or at least they will, I'm guessing, eventually. So that's just how gravel cranks are now. So it's pretty standard.
Okay.
By now. Yeah, it wasn't back then.
And then to do the right side chainstay is one solid piece of carbon fiber instead of being hollow.
Yep.
And then that way you can make it thinner so that it could be just as strong, so that you could still fit in a wide tire.
Yes. So we did these few things. So we went with the wider, the nowadays normal, but at that time wider cranks from SRAM. We did this solid chainstay, which is like 6 millimeters thick instead of 10-ish, which you can like get away with if you have it a hollow structure. And then it's a 1 by only. So these things in combined, these things combined, they enabled us to go from the 45 millimeter tie clearance that we had on the True Grit up to 57 on the Seigla, but still maintaining the same chainstay length. So nothing else changed. It's still the same fit on the bike, still the same like race fit on the bike. It's a relatively short bike in the back, but yeah, it took us from 45 up to 57.
Okay. So to put you on the spot a little bit, what do you think, and where are you thinking you can go, or if you can talk about it, about a lot of the bikes, the gravel bikes now having this down tube storage? Because I saw that Giant's new bike has down tube storage. Is that something like you're looking at, like in the future, of like adding to your bikes? Do you think it's
No, I don't like it. I don't like it. To me, it's
okay.
It's no, more than I strongly dislike it. It's like because like it's fundamentally I'm gonna say from an engineering perspective, it's a fundamentally bad idea because you're cutting into the tube, and carbon fibers. I mean, it's better in like in a metal bike, it's better, but when you have a carbon fiber structure, you have to cut fibers, and fibers that aren't leading anywhere, they aren't doing anything for you, so you're wasting a ton of material. So you end up with a sub-optimum tube. I mean, because you're not carrying weight everywhere in the tube, and tube is a good shape. Fundamentally, it's better than a U-beam. You end up with a U-beam instead of a tube where you make the hole. So it's a worse shape. Plus, you're creating a lot of like dead weight in your bike by cutting fibers. So you have to compensate with even more fibers on the sides, and all this for, I don't know. I mean, what's the benefit? I've never myself. I've never longed for any storage in my frame. I just like use my back pockets or whatever, other places. So I mean, of course, like I mean, obviously, I mean, they do it for a reason, because you can store stuff in the bike, which it can be convenient. But like, at least to me, it's like a trade-off that isn't very logical unless you're making just like a practical bike. If it's which we aren't. I mean, we are into making like performance bikes, and this is not a performance thing to say like, hey, what if I want to store my gloves in my bike? I mean, no,
that's funny, because I've got a half frame bag, and made a short video. I video a lot, you know, of me riding and the bikes and everything that we're using, and put it up on with the podcast. And then I made a couple minutes of what was in. I was waiting on it. There was a train, so I was like, well, let's just show you what's in my frame bag while we're waiting. And, I realized when I was done that I forgot that to show the bike pump that was in there, you know, a little mini frame pump is about that big. And then also the big thick Allen wrench tool set that was in there, because there's so much room in there already in a frame bag. And a frame bag goes in line with your frame and makes you faster, potentially.
Yeah, makes you
aero anyway. But I was like, and I forgot, you know, I showed my mud paint stick thing that everybody uses, and my gummy bears, and like all this stuff. And then later I had to make another video and go, oh yeah, by the way, there's this other stuff in here too. That's kind of funny. I didn't think about, the integrity of the down tube is compromised because
I mean, of course, I mean, I'm not saying the resulting bike is not going to be weaker because they then compensate with more material in other places, but it's fundamentally, to me, not a very good idea, unless you're like I said, like if you're focusing on if it's like a city bike or something, like a metal city bike, then absolutely, I mean, go for it. But in a carbon fiber bike, to me, it doesn't sound right. It isn't right, if you ask me. But I mean, I think this is like often, unfortunately, how like what sells bikes is the features. And then when like an X amount of your like competitors is offering like in frame storage and you don't, then that's considered a negative to some.
Yeah.
But then we wanna rather like explain basically why you shouldn't have that sort of.
Well, I admit we've been kind of caught up in that, looking at bikes. We're like, ooh, it's got down to
Yes.
Yeah.
telling Kai, oh, the new Giant. It's got 50 millimeters or whatever clearance in it. Ooh, and it's got down tube storage. But then so then we need to be educated better on that's actually not kind of like the cables on the I was only a watt or two, and then you can't adjust your cables, you know, and like or work. Okay, so then one thing that people note when they do reviews of the Seigla, they'll say, I always find it to the person, to the review that I've ever seen, they're like, holy crap, this bike is fast, right? And like, they don't really expect it to be because it's got a little bit more of a mountain bike geometry. So they think it's going to be more relaxed. I don't know, for whatever reason, they'll think it's slower. And then, holy crap, this is a race bike. Like, this is not like a slow bike. And then, but there is something interesting. You don't have any mounts for like I don't know, like cargo bags or something like what do you call the bags on the back, like I put on mine for the
saddlebag?
No, not the saddlebag, but
no, like racks or
racks, bike rack. Okay. So then so what is your suggestions that people do? Are you looking at making a bike or adding that to your bikes? Or because like in my mind, your bike is perfect for doing something like the Continental the Tour Divide or something like that.
Yeah.
With the tire clearance and the reliability, and it's tough, you know, but it's also fat, which is in the end makes it
quite a few people actually raced it.
Right.
Yeah.
So like, so what would you do for adding you know, like racks and stuff like that to your bikes?
So this is there's a little bit like the down tube like storage or top tube storage or whatever like topic. Like adding is subtracting sort of like to us. I mean, if you add mounts, I mean they're made out of something. They inevitably they add weight to your bike.
Right.
They add like basically and to me it's not even just, I mean, the weight penalty is going to be fairly minimal. Yes, of course, it's just a tiny mount. But it's also like the signal you're sending off. To me, again, it's like with the down tube storage. I mean, down tube storage doesn't add many grams to the bike for sure. I mean, it's okay. We can have a great bike with that even. And the same goes for the mounts. I mean, you can make a good bike and all that, but it's just like it's what you're saying with it. I mean, in your design process, why on earth did you like prefer to have mounts for like the 2 times that you're gonna like ride the bike with like so much luggage that like clip-ons or whatever won't work? But at the same time, you're making it suboptimal for all the cases where you want it to be as fast as possible. So it's like
we've had our bikes 3-4 years and we've ridden 1 bike packing trip. And I'm the only one of us actually put a luggage rack on.
And then you have and the reason we are able to I think to do it this way is that there are so many like perfectly fine solutions out there for like frame bags that don't need any mounting points. Just like you might, I mean, it might mean that you want to like tape your frame first just to protect it from being scratched from like the strap that goes around the tube or whatever. But I mean, that's a very minimal downside in my opinion. So basically whenever I see like a new gravel bike or a new bike coming out that has like all the mounts for everything, I'm like yes, like and those guys are like they gave in to everything sort of. That which I mean, it's no coincidence that our bike is as light as it is. It is by us like foregoing stuff that doesn't need to be on it, and we don't consider it like necessary for its task sort of.
Right. So we were talking about doing a bike trip this summer to San Marcos and back, which would be like 2-3 days. And you like to fin system. Did you know, Kai, that the tail fin actually has an axle that you can buy?
Yeah, I was gonna say that.
Yeah.
No mounting points.
There's no mounting points, and I guess maybe it mounts to your
Yeah.
seat or something like that.
Yeah,
And
so yeah, we've been recommending the tail fin racks
okay,
on
yeah.
our bike. Yeah.
And then on my
I mean,
bike,
yeah, so you don't need any, why would you need mounting points then, sort of? So that, that's our take on it, at least.
okay, yeah. And when I added my frame bag to my bike, because it was going to be Velcro straps, I did
Yep.
I bought the 3M tape and just put it on the spot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'd also like to compliment you on making a men's bike in pink. I think pink is like, there is nothing. I've been wearing a pink jersey now for a few years. It took me a while to find a men's pink jersey that was high performance. And that is not a color that occurs in nature, you know?
Yeah.
That is what is huge with bike safety, is you want to pop, you know?
Yeah.
And then, so thank you for making bikes and the men's.
And it's fun. It's like, which goes again to like the mounting points and all that. I mean, why do we ride bikes? I mean, at least I can speak for myself. It's because it's fun. And a bike becomes, in my eyes, less fun by like adding like mounts to it and stuff. That's just practicality. I mean, we just want the practicality of going fast, sort of. That's the practicality we're after. And like, and a pink bike, it's a fun bike.
Yeah, it is. And I'm glad that's become, I'm glad that's become okay, you know, as for guys to ride. I forgot it started about maybe 5-10 years ago. You started to see them pop up. It was Hillary Biscay's husband. She's an Ironman champion, and like her husband, she started a women's clothing line that had all kinds of bright colors, I think, about 10 years ago. But her husband was a pro, and he started wearing, they just made some cuts for men in her colors that were really for women. And I think everybody was like, dude, that's cool. That looks actually pretty cool. And so he made it okay because he was a successful pro to start wearing that. So tell me a little bit about biking, to wrap it up, like biking in Iceland. And is there mountain? We know Americans love Iceland. We love the idea of it. We know nothing about it except for Bjork. But we know nothing about it. And I say most Americans get it confused with probably Greenland half the time. And then I was doing some Google Street View of Iceland just the other day with somebody. And I was surprised how many trees there were, which just shows how little I know. And then Kai, you wrote can you tell a little bit about your college essay that you wrote?
Yeah, to apply for colleges, I had to write was it for
Well, you wrote an essay about biking across Iceland, but we've never done it, so he had to kind of
okay, yeah. You need to do that then, obviously.
Yeah, like my plan
to bike pack
across, I forget where it was. I know it was Iceland, but
yeah, you started at the east in this campground and then went to these like hot springs and these lava fields and whatever. So is there mountain biking in Iceland? These are dumb questions, I got to admit, but is there mountain biking in Iceland? And
absolutely, absolutely. That's
gravel so much, because I've seen a lot of gravel racing in Iceland. I've seen a lot of gravel in Iceland, like pacing, whatever, like to bike across Iceland as fast as they could on gravel bikes and such.
Yeah. So I mean, we have plenty of mountain biking for sure. That's the origin of like all cycling sort of in Iceland. I mean, when I was like a teenager growing up, I mean, that was the only kind of high-end riding here. I mean, nobody rode a road bike. We didn't have like the infrastructure for that. We have like more cycling lanes and stuff now, and it's pretty nice now in and around Reykjavik. It's nice for a road bike as well. But it all goes back to like mountain bikes here, and we have like in the highlands here, or just like smorgasbord of mountain biking. There's endless opportunities, and then that also we have that, and then there's, I guess, like the reason why we are like at the forefront of pushing this message of like wider is faster for bikes. is that it's just so evident here when you're riding like in the highlands, even on like the roads that the cars drive. It's like it's gravel roads, and they're pretty poor often, the roads. So it's obvious, it has been obvious to us from the get-go when we made the first gravel bike that we wanted to be on wider tires because they are faster. That's our experience. And like we have these like gravel events here. One of them called the Blue Lagoon Challenge.
Yeah.
It actually, it was called.
That was one of the
was
stops on his thing. That was one of the stops on your.
The Blue Lagoon.
Yeah, the Blue Lagoon. Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to go there now because the volcano keeps erupting there right next to it. So it's like closed open. Yeah, depending on the lava flow, etc. Yeah. But it's so there was a race there. It was called the mountain bike race. It was supposed to be a mountain bike race, but it actually was. It was like the old school mountain bike racing, which kind of was gravel racing. Yeah. And in that race, and then we quickly saw similarities with the gravel racing, which is like the Unbound, for example, that we've done a few times in the US. That it's like in many ways pretty similar, and we had like been doing this like Blue Lagoon race for a decade here or so, and people like had like figured out that the fastest tires were gonna be like 2-inch tires, give or take, something like that on the gravel, and so this is very natural to us, natural thinking that these widths are faster than the narrow tires, just because we learned it from experience. And actually, funny enough, so yesterday I think we actually changed the spec of our Seigla bikes. So now they actually come on 50mm tires rather than 45s that they came on.
Oh, wow. If you bought one now, they come with 50s.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I was surprised because I'd forgotten, because we did the so when we did Valley of Tears, I'm looking at, we got a poster of it up here. When we did Valley of Tears, it was on a lot of it was on a railroad converted line, and it was rough, man.
It was so bad.
It's so rough. I run a 47, a 48 in the front of my bike because the forks on ours will hold that, and that was nice with the suspension stem. But we're both, on 42s in the rear. I'm just sitting there, just getting banged up, and we're thinking about Chase Warwick and Keegan Swinson riding 50 with suspension forks on the front, and like I was just sitting there the entire time being just banged around, going, "Oh my God, this would be so much better right now on wider tires, like if you could fit them with lower tire pressure," because we also race mountain bike a lot. So we're very familiar with 2.3, 2.4-inch tubeless, low pressure, and how that takes the edge off of things. And but then also gravel locos. Remember I told you, Kai, that I thought it was about 50% gravel. It was not. It's like 80% gravel.
Correct. Yeah.
Then it was sudden. I hit stuff so hard that I banged my bike computer off my handlebars. So I had to keep it in my pocket, and then I'm like, no, gravel racing is rough, man. Like it is really, really rough. So the bigger.
Yeah.
Wow. I wonder if you're the only one that's specking 50mm tires. I can't think of another one.
No, like most of them would be like, you don't want to, you generally don't want to spec like the widest tire that can be fitted on your bike.
Right.
So I think most of our competition is like, maxed out at 50. That's generally like the modern gravel bikes of most competitors, the max out around there, which means that they're gonna spec 45 or so. Then the customer, the owner of the bike can then upgrade to a 50 later. But I mean, with us, I mean, we spec the 50, and I mean, there's still like plenty of room around the tire. I mean, plenty of room for like mud and whatever. So and you can go bigger. Yeah, still
crazy. Yeah, because then the whole thing, Unbound, not this year but the year before, but it could happen any year, is so many frames were ruined by people running as wide of tires as they can. So they're running a 45, 48, but if they're lucky, their bike would clear a 50. But then because one time we were riding bikes and I had my bike barely clears a 50 on the front fork, Remember that ride? And then, so I had a 50 in it, and I had chopped down the knobs on the side so I could get that.
Yeah. Classic. Yeah.
Get this peanut butter mud, and I think I went an eighth of a mile before my bike just came to just a dead stop. And then
Yeah.
I'm carrying my bike, and then like I had to have a pickup truck carry me. And you were running 42s.
I was on my mountain bike.
Oh, you were on your mountain bike, so tons of clearance. And so
Yeah.
the mountain bike race, and I was
stuck.
and you still kind of got stuck, but still managed to get through it. I had to get a pickup truck ride. Yeah, so you have to like, I think when people look at bikes to buy, you have to consider what is the worst case scenario race that I'm going to be stuck in it. And if there's peanut butter mud, you want a lot of extra tire clearance.
Absolutely.
We're
Yeah.
trying to be really, we want the forks in the rear to be really wide so you can run narrower tires and actually get through that mud. So what tires did you actually pick to stock on your bikes? Or is there different ones?
So Goodyear connector. So yeah, you're probably not familiar with the tires, so they aren't that big yet. But of course, Goodyear being a huge company, I mean, in car tires and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're pushing into bikes more and more now, and we're super excited to work with them because it's like fun. We can like become like a significant portion sort of their push into cycling. I mean, so it's like nice teamwork. It's fun to work with them on like coming up with new stuff, and so this is the first tire respect from them, and we're looking forward to do some more stuff in the future.
Another thing I can appreciate is on your head tube, you actually have a deep section head tube, which is good for aerodynamics. It's a non-moving part. It eats up the miles a whole lot faster. That's one thing, because I'm tall. If I buy a round tube bike, I got this huge head tube that's just got all
exactly.
But I try to.
And that's like and this is like with the aero gains, you wanna make them where they are the biggest and where they don't come with like a substantial like disadvantage as well.
Right.
So to me, that's obvious. I mean, the head tube is obviously what you should be looking at. I mean, the head tube and the handlebar. But I mean, with the handlebar, if you go all in, that means you have to do like a one-piece stem and bar. I mean, which comes with downsides and all that. But if you want to make the big gains, you should focus on the head tube, and then you should like eventually, when you found your fit and all that, then you can get that like a one-piece setup in the front.
So are you saying like the flat top handlebars are the more aerodynamic, or narrower handlebars so that you're
both? I mean, like narrower, for sure, and then just like thinner and deeper for sure. And those are like, it's funny, like when you see, I won't mention any brand names, but there have been a few road bikes lately where they claim like this bike is more aero than last generation, or maybe it's like as aero, but now it's also as light as the light bike we had, or blah blah blah, like stuff like that. If you look into details, what like enabled this like magic to happen for them is just that now they use a slimmer handlebar than what they did before, and this is because of UCI rules changing. So I'm pretty sure that the handlebars, I think they were limited to the 3-to-1 rule, 3 like depth, 1 height.
Right. Now it's
while now it's just a minimum of 10 millimeters and maximum of 80. So now they're practically free to do whatever shape, which means they can make the handlebar more aero, and the handlebar being like the biggest contributor to aerodynamics because it gets like the fresh airflow.
Right. It's not matter.
Like by far. Like I mean, when you're out riding, like try looking down and like at your seat posts. And then think like, okay, I mean, how much fresh airflow is that seat post seeing? I mean, in my case, not much. My thighs are wide, but still, I mean, there's not an opportunity for any big gains there. But with the handlebar, you have like huge opportunities for big gains, and the same goes for the head tube. Sort of to make it, if you make it fairly deep like ours are, that's gonna make you substantially more aero.
Yeah, that drop-on bike behind me at the time it was built was not UCI legal. If people can see the fork on that thing, That
Yeah.
that is, you know, like 2-3 inches deep, and then
Yeah.
it's probably, yeah, like you're saying, 10 millimeters, if that, like thick.
Yeah.
But now I think it's probably UCI legal because they changed the rules. And so the same thing with the handlebars. These are like super thin. So
Yeah, exactly. So this is a big gain you can make, exactly. And this, yeah, I mean, with these, yeah, I mentioned, yeah, the seat post. I mean, yeah, what gains can you make there? It's all like, yeah, I mean, it all connects to marketing, of course, because you have to sell the bikes you make and all that. And just from the side view of a bike that is always shown, I mean, you see a bike without a rider, and then like the seat tube or the seat mast and yeah, the seat post and all that. It's a pretty big portion of what you see, and it's like it strikes you as an important piece of the bike to become aero.
right.
But actually, when you put a rider on it and turn it around the bike, I mean, it doesn't do much.
Yeah, this is a really cool conversation. I like it. I love it that you're like so into aerodynamics, and that it's actually more subtle than what people think. Because once the air gets disturbed, you know, by the seat post, it doesn't matter so much, and things about appearances. But at the front, coming from the triathlon background, you know, it's aero helmet, your front wheel, and your handlebars, and how narrow you can get. Everything else past that is like, it's the air's so disturbed at that point. You're
exactly. Yeah, I can't remember the ratio, but it wasn't like the impact of like if you have a body in turbulent air versus laminar air, like the impact like in drag is gonna be like a third or less or something. So it's like it's trivial. Everything that happens like behind like the front third or something of a bike,
yeah,
you could almost say that it just doesn't matter. Like in the
sometimes
context.
more material back there is better, you know, like to fill in gaps and things like that.
Yeah, because then you can take the turbulent stuff that happened and you can like try to like re-laminate it, sort of. You can like break it up into
Yeah, this is cool. I could talk to you forever about this. So, but we didn't need to wrap up and save your time. But what's coming up? Like you said, you're introducing 50 millimeter tires. The road bike is still kind of like relatively new. I don't know how long. Has it been 2 years that it's been out?
No, the road bike is relatively new. That came out basically the beginning of this year. The road bike.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. So it's pretty new. So we have plenty of ground still to gain on that.
Yeah, and the color on that is pretty cool. Like that's a different kind of pink. Is it red? There's a reddish.
It's a red, and then there's like a sparkly, like with a purple tone in it as well, like a dark. Yeah, I guess like our focus for what we're gonna be pushing now for the coming weeks and months now a little bit is like this message of like wider is faster. Yeah, you're probably gonna see some of that, and we're planning on doing some like scientific testing of that as well to push the message some more, because it takes a while to like break down this mentality of what feels fast is fast. Well, that's like
well, I think that's a really good idea, and I think not by coincidence, you know, like what's just happened recently with Chase Wark performing so well on a Lauf with wide tires, and then Keegan performing so well on a bike with front suspension. I mean, different bike, but front suspension he's riding 50s for a lot of stuff. And then Dylan Johnson with your fork to add suspension, and him going with a bike that actually holds wider tires too. I think people are catching on, but y'all are so far ahead of the curve, you know, already. Like, quit trying to make your bike wide. There's a bike out there already that does all this, and then with everybody, just the best thing ever was Lachlan Morton of winning Unbound. And what's so funny is he rode a mountain bike front tire because his frame was too narrow in the back to fit a mountain bike.
Yeah, exactly.
He was doing the most that he could by putting a mountain bike front tire in.
And I think like the pros, they are somewhat to blame, I think, for our like reluctancy to go with wider tires because, of course, I mean, they're always gonna. It doesn't matter what tire I put on my bike, I'm not gonna win the unbound. So it's
They're
we always
obligated
looked
to
at
sponsor. They have to ride with
yeah, and they're just like, I mean, they come from the roadside of things, obviously. Obviously, like many of the fastest gravel riders, and this like mindset is largely like built into you. Obviously, I mean, if you have the experience on riding on 25s and then you sort of eventually adapted to 28s, I mean, you're not gonna like jump straight on a 50 tire for gravel racing. Your head's gonna be like stuck in perceiving narrower than 50 as a faster tire than 50. So it just takes a while to break this down, and we've been looking so much at the pros, I think, and what equipment they are using, and trusting that rather than I don't know, our judgment or science. I don't know.
Yeah, I used to ride motorcycles a lot, and there's a feeling on a motorcycle. Well, in a car, 60 miles per hour feels like 60 miles per hour. On a motorcycle, 60 miles per hour feels like 100 miles per hour.
Yeah.
All the sensation and the just everything that's happening. So you get all this, but you get all this feedback that overwhelms you. And so just last weekend, I rode 2 hours on my triathlon bike. And then I stopped for like 5 minutes and then hopped onto my gravel bike to finish out the ride because I haven't ridden my triathlon bike in a while and I didn't want to be in that super slam position for so long and maybe hurt my back.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Just 2 hours is plenty. And that thing's on, like I said, on narrow tire, and switching over to the gravel bike was like, with the wider tires was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh, it felt like so much nicer. And then that was on Saturday or Sunday. And then yesterday I rode my gravel bike again. And I guess I lost a little bit of air pressure because maybe I picked up, like a piece of broken glass or something like that. So the tires are running a little bit softer, and that felt even better. And like, it felt even faster to be riding about another 5-10 PSI, even lower than what I was riding. And it was like riding a magic carpet. Like I think like the way I said it is like it's riding like a memory foam mattress.
Yeah.
But then I looked at my numbers when I was done, and that ride was actually faster than my other gravel rides I've been doing on the same route with softer tires. Yeah. It's
counterintuitive. Very. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for making Lauf Bikes and talking with us and sponsoring Chase. He is so entertaining to watch, and so he wants it so bad, and he's such a great guy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
he was on our show about a month or two ago. I interviewed him, and then thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you guys. Thanks a lot. Yeah, I'm gonna go now and check your interview with Chase. I didn't see that at the time, but I mentioned I gotta check it.
Yeah, we had just done Valley of Tears, and so it was a lot about the head rear disc wheel that he was running. And he wasn't running the suspension. I think he decided against the suspension fork because he was worried about trying to keep up with Keegan and the fork bobbing, trying to put out just like crazy speeds.
Short sprints.
But I think Keegan ran a suspension fork and won. And the course ended up being rougher than what we thought it was going to be.
Especially towards the end.
Yeah. So I think he mentioned in that interview that he regretted not running the suspension fork.
Okay.
Because the very next race he did. The very next race he ran a suspension fork.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, cool.
Nice. All right. Excellent. Yeah. Thank you guys.
All right.
Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye-bye.